Welcome to EP1 of Dave. What's a Dave, you may ask? It's short for Big Wave Dave. In this series, I'm going to try and tackle all topics uncomfortable waves. Everything that I've learnt over the years can be applied from 1 foot waves, if those make you uncomfortable, all the way up to the biggest stuff you can surf. I'm not necessarily an expert in the field, but this is going to be a way of showcasing what I do to prepare myself and just anything else big wave related. Today I'm going to go over my top 3 wipeouts and injuries in surfing and progressively get a little bit more intense with the injuries and the wipeouts. So stay tuned to the end if you want to see, which might surprise you, my worst injury I sustained while surfing. Wipeout number 1, jaws. I was 19 at the time, my second ever trip to Hawaii. Don't really know how I ended up out there other than I surfed, met a few mates along the way who invited me over to Maui, got some fun waves over there, and then a little jaws swell popped up. By jaws standards, it was quite small, to be fair, but to me, it felt huge. Earlier in the day, I got my first wave, which I kind of bottom turned around a barrel, kind of sat in front of the wave, and it was a bit of a smaller one. To be fair, the waves that I got in this session back then would be paddle waves today. But back then, jaws was still a tow wave. I found myself out the back after my first wave. Waited for about 30 minutes in the water and found myself on the end of the tow rope, letting go after someone essentially tried to drop in on with another ski, forcing us to be really deep on the peak and not really giving me anywhere to go but as fast as I can to the channel, which happened to be through the barrel with a closeout section coming towards me. I don't really remember much from the wave. I think sometimes when I'm surfing bigger waves, I kind of black out and just do what feels natural. Doggy-doored and just got so lipped. And this is hands down the longest I've ever spent underwater and by far the deepest I've ever been. I remember my ears popping and luckily having a life vest on, grabbing on nice and tight to that, and the boys mentioned to me that I need to remain calm under the water, which is something that I learned in this surf apnea course, which is coming in EP2. The most important thing you can learn. And I actually did one of these kind of courses before my first ever Hawaii trip, so I had some kind of an understanding how to deal with hold downs. But essentially what happened was I got pushed really, really deep. And I remember having a life vest on and still being underwater. I opened my eyes up and I couldn't really see the surface because of how turbulent the water was. I just closed my eyes again, relaxed, and just felt the life vest pulling me up. I took like 1 big stroke, 2 big strokes, grabbed the vest. And then at this point, I started worrying about a 2-wave hold down. Took another big stroke, held onto my vest, and then I was absolutely crapping myself. There'd be another wave on my head at this point. Took 1 last big stroke, popped to the surface, and the ski driver, Marlon, was there in about 5 seconds. Jumped on the back of the ski, there weren't any other waves, and I was shaking from adrenaline for the rest of the day.
This is Dave. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, or next time you're underwater, I'll come and pull you under.
This was by far the longest and deepest hold down I've ever had, but probably the most comfortable I've felt in that position due to the preparation from these kind of courses that I'm going to be bringing to you next week. Having that calmness and actually understanding how your respiratory system works helps you really understand the level and extent of your abilities. I felt really great after this, and probably for the worse, felt a little bit invincible because I came back 2 years later and tried to paddle out jaws. I went on a little bit of a swell that wasn't looking amazing. I tried to paddle, got caught inside about 30 minutes into the session, 10-foot hose pipe leg rope snapped, board destroyed on the rocks, and that's the last time I surfed jaws. I'm really hoping I can get back there in the future. Wipeout number 2, chokes, or Teahupo'o. Is that how you say it? I'd gone to Tahiti for a junior event which we actually scored some really good waves for. And then a pretty solid swell popped up on the radar for chopes. It was sheet glass, absolutely pumping. And I remember being at the homestay where we could sort of look across the bay or the reef or whatever it is into chopes. And it was like kind of dark and all I could see were these just big spitting holes. It was such a nerve-wracking feeling, like jumping on the boat that morning to paddle out there, because I knew there were going to be some crazy, crazy waves. And on this day, it was a half paddle, half tow day. I paddled out there, and for me, when I'm surfing big waves, I always try and get my first wave as quickly as possible. It helps me settle my nerves. If I get a good one, it pumps me up. If I have a wipeout and I survive, it gets the butterflies out of my stomach and makes me feel comfortable. So that's one thing I try and do when I surf bigger waves. Catch my first wave as quickly as possible just to get those butterflies and jitters out. First wave actually took off, pulled in, and there's I don't know if it's still called this, but they call it the hand of God. First wave, I pulled in too deep and the foam ball just kind of sucked me straight through the back. And it gave me a lot of confidence. So I paddled back out. It was just sort of on sunrise and I paddled into the best wave I've had at chopes. Pulled in, got spat out into the channel, and now I'm feeling confident. This is only the third time I've ever surfed chopes. The other 2 times are 3 to 4 foot. This day was building through the day. So first wave was maybe a 6 footer. Second one was maybe a little bit bigger. And then I waited for a long time because there were a few pretty gnarly guys out there who I witnessed getting some insane waves. When the set starts approaching a lineup, you hear the whistles from the channel. And I heard the whistles, so everybody gets a little bit nervous. We start taking a few strokes out and I just see this insane west wave approaching the lineup, and it was my turn to go. To be fair, I probably wouldn't go on this wave now, just with the sort of bend that it had in it, because it really clamped hard on the reef. But I just was so hungry to get one after sort of waiting for about 45 minutes for this wave. Just tried to knife it as much as I could under the lip, and I remember letting go of the rails and kind of just standing there in disbelief. I think a little bit of lack of experience in such hectic, open and crazy waves kind of made me freeze like a deer in the headlights. And that's when the foam ball hit me, and I have never been so ragdolled in my whole life. I remember being ragdolled so hard, I couldn't even bring my arms and legs in because I was just spinning out so fast. I ended up actually hitting my head, the back of my head, really, really hard on the reef, needing to get staples in my head. And the guys in the homestay threw me in the back of a ute and we're just going like 110 on this crazy little road to the hospital. Had a few doctors with a toothbrush in the back of my head trying to get coral out the back of my head. Had scrapes all down my back, over my body and on my legs. And I had such bad whiplash from this wipeout. I was doing the full robot dance for the next week or two. Had my flights booked home 2 days later, jumped on the plane, got home, and on the plane ride home, my ankle was the one spot, the tiniest little scratch the doctors didn't get to. And I got a golden staph infection. My foot blew up like a balloon and I spent 2 weeks in hospital with antibiotics and having to get the staples removed from my head. That was one of the worst ones I ever had, and probably the most violent wipeout I've ever experienced. Wipeout number 3, and this will surprise you. My worst surf injury happened out at Snapper on a 2 foot day. I paddled out, pretty uncrowded for Snapper, which was surprising. Fun little clean 2 foot barrels, bit of backwash around, caught a few waves and then pulled into this beautiful little 2 foot perfect wave. But the backwash hit at just the worst time and I felt this massive pop in my right ankle, which caused me to tear and destroy my ligaments. It was really rattling because I actually had that Teahupo'o swell and that comp coming up 2 weeks from then. So I had to surf the comp and chopes with a busted ligament in my ankle. But really, this injury took me so long to get over because I kept surfing. I got all this scar tissue in my ankle and it still affects me to this day. Thanks so much for watching EP1 of Dave. I really hope you enjoyed the vid and I cannot wait for you to see EP number 2. Thanks for watching. Ooh.